Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to day 2 of weekend 5 of Scotland's Climate Assembly. So as you all know, we're back in our Homes Communities work stream today for the whole day. So a few quick reminders just to go through before we start the agenda for the day. As ever, if you do need to contact the support team at any point, you can do that in all of the usual ways. So via text, via phone, via email, or you can ask your facilitator if you're in a small group to contact them, and they'll be able to help you out with any tech issues. As ever, when we're showing presentations, if you want it to kind of show up large on your screen, make sure that you're set to the standard view, and that should make it as large as possible. And you've got all of your kind of usual controls around kind of gallery view or speaker view when we're not showing slides as well. So I'm just going to share my screen so we can quickly go over the agenda for this for today. So this morning we're covering a couple of different things. So first off, we're going to have an introduction and an evidence presentation on the update to the Scottish Climate Change Plan. And then we'll be able to have a Q&A session with Fabrice Levesque, who's from the Climate Emergency Response Group, about the contents of that presentation. Following that, we're going to have some group discussions, which are going to be looking at the question of so what, so kind of reflecting on what you've heard about the update to the climate change plan and what that might mean for the recommendations that you're making as an assembly. Then we'll have a comfort break, and then following that, the final part of this morning will be another information carousel. And so similar to yesterday, we'll have 4 experts who will rotate around your breakout groups, and particularly looking at the homes, the 2 homes questions, and the goals and the recommendations that you've been developing for those so far. And they'll be there on hand to help to kind of answer any questions and help you to kind of further kind of refine those goals and recommendations. So that will take us to lunch at 12:30. And then when we come back from lunch at 2 o'clock, this afternoon, we're going to, first of all, return to your fairness propositions, just to kind of remind us of what those covered. Then we'll be looking kind of quickly at what does a good goal or recommendation look like. So what are the sorts of things that we need to think about when reviewing the goals and recommendations? And that will then take us on to that next step of reviewing all of the goals and recommendations from across everything that you've been considering as a work stream. So we'll be looking at all of the goals and recommendations that you've developed under the homes topics and the communities topics as well. And this will be an opportunity for you to suggest kind of revisions and where, and if needed, where new goals might be added. And then we'll hear back from groups following that. So you'll kind of report back from your group to the rest of the work stream on any changes that you think need to be made. And following that, we'll have some more group discussions, and then as groups, you'll agree or not to the proposals that have come out from each of the groups around kind of new goals or any substantive changes to recommendations. So this afternoon is going to be really an opportunity for us to kind of continue to work on and refine the work you've been doing so far, and particularly identifying any significant changes that we think need to be made to that, and giving you an opportunity as a group and as a work stream to agree or not to those proposals from each of the different groups. So that's what we're going to be covering over today. Just a quick reminder of the conversation guidelines, and 4 particularly I'll just refer you to. So kind of 1 person speaking at a time, actively listening to each other, giving everyone time to talk, and be opening to changing your mind. So do keep these in mind throughout the day, and also, of course, the rest of the conversation guidelines that you've agreed as well. So first off, we're going to hear about the update to the Scottish Climate Change Plan. Daisy wasn't able to join us today, but instead we've got Ian, who's going to kind of introduce this session and tell us what we're going to be looking at. So over to you, Ian.
Thanks for that, Tim. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to our second day where we're going to be concentrating on homes, as you know. But first, before we get into the nitty-gritty of existing and new homes, we're going to hear some really a final set of evidence. And it's going to be given by Fabrice Levesque from the Climate Emergency Response Group and WWF Scotland. We'll hear more about the Climate Emergency Response Group, a kind of independent group that advises, if you like, the Scottish Government, critiques the Scottish Government work on climate change. And in particular, what Fabrice is going to talk to us about is to provide an external view and oversight onto the new Scottish Climate Change Plan update. Now, as you might remember, we mentioned this before, when we've been in the middle of our deliberations, there has been an update on the Scottish Climate Change Plan, which that came in really right in the midst of our discussion. So it's really relevant that we think about what that's got in it, because it could change our plans. Really, that's the point. So it updates the Climate Change Plan, which was set in 2018, and it sets out a range of policies and the emission reductions from those policies haven't been calculated yet. So there's quite a bit of uncertainty still in the system, really, and Fabrice will pick up on that. So what's not known is whether these changes will be sufficient to meet the Scottish Government's 2030 or 2045 targets, and you'll hear that mentioned. So as I say, we thought that because this update happened as we were in our deliberation, it'd be important to bring it back to you to tell you what the situation is, and really help you focus those recommendations on areas that you feel the plan isn't sufficiently addressing. So Fabrice has got a video, and we'll play that now, and then we'll have a Q&A with Fabrice where we can open it up a little bit more. So if we can play the video, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So we're going to kind of move on to having a look back at the two homes topics. But could we say a really big thank you to Fabrice for joining us this morning and answering our questions. So, as I said, for the remainder of this morning, we're going to return back to the two homes questions that we were looking at the previous weekends. In a moment, Ian's going to remind us of what those are, but before he does that, I'm just going to quickly tell you a little bit more about what we're going to be doing this morning. So once we've heard from Ian and he's kind of outlined the questions, he's also going to introduce us to the four experts who are going to be joining us for the information carousel a little bit later this morning. We're then going to give you 20 minutes to prepare for that information carousel, so to kind of remind yourselves about the different kind of issues and questions you had around the two homes questions, and all of the work that you've already done on the goals and the recommendations for those questions as well. After that 20 minutes, you'll have a 10-minute break, and then when we come back from the break, we'll go straight into the information carousel. So as we did yesterday for the communities questions, you'll have 10 minutes with each of our experts, and then we'll rotate them around the groups. And there'll also be a slot that's kind of free for you to also just have a discussion amongst yourselves. And then at the very end, there'll be a bit of time for you to have a think about everything that you've discussed and kind of reflect on that. So that's what we're going to be doing. So now I'll hand over to Ian to talk us through and kind of recap what the two questions are for homes, and then also to introduce the four experts.
Thanks for that, Tim. So if I just share my screen, we should be able to bring up the so hopefully you can see that full screen. So yeah, in the homes, you'll know these will be imprinted, I'm sure, into your brain. Really, how should Scotland change its existing homes to tackle the climate emergency in an effective and a fair way? And then how should Scotland change how it builds new homes to tackle the climate emergency in an effective and fair way? And to help us navigate through that, we've got a mixture of people you've met before and some new faces, really. We've got Laurie McElroy from the International Building Performance Simulation Association, and also involved with Existing Homes Alliance Scotland. And you can see that some of the things that she can cover: policy, household energy, fuel poverty, retrofitting, and also relating to new builds as well as existing. And then we've got Elizabeth Layton, who is also connected with the Existing Homes Alliance, but also was on the Climate Emergency Response Group. So that was what Fabrice was on as well, that broader advisory group. And she's got interest in climate emergency response, buildings net zero, around the heat transition, energy efficiency, fuel poverty, and community engagement. We got Jonathan Hines, an architect, director of Archetype, and with a specialism in this passive house design, sustainable design, retrofitting, new build, particularly low energy design and low carbon, so materials, etc. And then we've got two for the price of one from Cala Group. We've got Brian Johnson and Stephen Kelso, and they're particularly be able to provide expertise on the new builds, the supply chain implications for future standard, and also decarbonisation. So they're going to be your carousel today, and I'll pass back to Tim to take us into that.
Great, thanks very much, Ian. So all of those experts have been chosen in response to the various different kind of issues that you and kind of questions you highlighted at the previous weekend. So hopefully they'll be able to help you to kind of address those. The purpose for this session is really to help you kind of focus down on your priorities for where you want to make recommendations that are going to kind of most effectively kind of respond to the assembly questions. So keep that in mind as you're talking to them. So as I said, we'll now go into your groups for 20 minutes to prepare for that session. You'll then go straight into a break, and then when you come back from the break, you'll have an expert waiting there for the carousel. So over to the production team to set up the breakout group.